Are you spending thousands of dollars every month on marketing, but yet most of your patients, your best patients, are still coming through as referrals and word of mouth? Does it feel like you're just flushing money down the drain for Google ads, social media, SEO, and marketing in general? What if I told you that offices are getting more calls for high-end treatments like Invisalign, dental implants than they even realize? What if I told you the difference between a practice that's bringing in $1 million in production versus one that's bringing 3 to 5 times more in production is little to do with marketing? And it's definitely not because of the area that they're in or the demographics that they're serving. The difference between a practice that's struggling and one that's booking weeks out is to do with how they handle the first 30 to 60 seconds with a new patient. And it's something that's quietly costing practices hundreds of thousands of dollars in procedures that walk straight across the street to your competitor. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the RevUp Dental Podcast. My name is Ashlyn, and I will be your host today. Before we dive in, I wanted to give everyone a little background on RevUp Dental for those who may be listening for the first time. So, RevUp Dental partners with dental practices across North America to provide marketing and web services, as well as improving patient experience and strengthening front desk performance. They also help teams build the skills and systems needed to deliver exceptional patient interactions, all in the name of supporting practice growth. Through training, coaching, and call reviews and ongoing support, RevUp works with dental teams to improve communication, increase call conversions, and build confidence at the front desk. The goal isn't just more calls, but turning those opportunities into booked appointments and long-term patient relationships. I'm really excited about today's episode because I've got 2 incredible guests joining me. I've had the chance to work closely with both of them here at RevUp Dental, and I can honestly say the insights they bring from the training are going to be really valuable for this conversation. So first up, we have Beth, our lead training coach. And we also have Cassandra. And we also have Cassandra, one of our call quality coaches. So welcome you two. I'm really glad to have you here today.
Hi, Ashlyn. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining today. So we're going to start off with Beth. I'm going to give a little spiel about who Beth is. So Beth brings a unique blend of leadership development, call center management, and dental patient communication expertise. After successfully building and scaling a dental call answering service with an 80% booking rate, she joined RevUp Dental, where she now leads training and coaching programs that have helped hundreds of dental teams improve their patient experience and conversion rates. So, Beth, that's a brief overview of your background, but is there anything else you'd like to add before we dive into today's conversation?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ashlyn. It's always funny to hear your life summarized in like one tiny little sentence. It's like, here you are. That's you. That's all we need to know. One thing I did want to share with everyone, yes, we built a call answering service. We answered the phones for multiple dental practices all across North America, and we specifically did it with practices that were struggling. So they were kind of on their own doing 40% or less, and then when we came in, we were saying, okay, like let's try our techniques. Let's try what we, based on our analysis, we believe will work. And when we applied it, we were surprised how successful we were. So booking at 80%. The one thing I kind of wanted to share with everyone is I don't have a background in dentistry. And I think that's something that's quite important for a lot of front desk receptionists out there who are doubting themselves because people are saying, well, you have to know about dentistry in order to be successful at the front desk. And I have worked with many office managers who say, I can never find good staff because I need to find somebody who has a background in dentistry. And it's like, no, you don't. We have been very successful without having any background knowledge in dentistry. The stuff that we need to know, we learn. We can read books, we can be taught the basic stuff. But the point is that we just need to be able to apply those core quality steps. And then with our ability to speak the same language as our patients, we're in many ways better at having these conversations because we don't understand the lingo, we don't know the lingo, and that's okay. We're talking to people who also don't understand the lingo. So we just try to translate it for them. we were very surprised, both at how successful we were, but then also at how I kind of assumed that if I was going to come into these dental practices, take their calls, have a good booking rate, that the staff wouldn't really like us. But we were blown away. The staff did. They loved us. They're like, no, please come, do more, book these patients for us. It's easier for us. We don't have to do that. So the staff loved us, but the dentists, the practice owners, and this is where we were sort of surprised, they didn't so much. And not that they didn't love us. They agreed what we were doing was good and we were booking at the high percentage. But they, in the end, they didn't want to have to hire an external company to come in and do what they were already paying their staff to do. And so that's why RevUp built the training program. We sort of pivoted from, should we do a call answering service? It's working. We know we can book these patients, to, yeah, we get it. Dental owners, dentists, practice owners, they want the staff who they are paying to do this job to be able to do that 80% booking rate. So that is where we started the the training program. We're now 2 years in. We have trained hundreds of staff and we are seeing the results. It's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I just wanted to share with that. One of the coolest thing I think is you don't necessarily need a background in dentistry in order to be successful at the front desk.
Yes, I definitely agree with you on that. And that's great. Thank you for sharing all of that. Before we dive in, I have some questions I actually wanted to kind of start with before we bring Cassandra in. But some of the questions that I wanted to start with is, you mentioned that you work closely with dental practices every day. What are some of the main areas you support those teams with, especially when it comes to front desk communication and patient experience?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I got to be completely honest. A lot of what I teach is stuff they already know. They just don't realize, or they either forget. Being at the front desk is very stressful. You have a lot of things happening all at once. So a lot of the stuff that you just forget, and you sort of revert back to old panic mode habits. Or they do, but don't necessarily realize how important it is. One example comes to mind. I was working with someone just a few weeks ago where she had this beautiful introduction, good morning, welcome to ABC Dental. My name is Beth. How can I help you today? She has this lovely warm tone, beautiful accent. And I asked her, why do you use that intro? And she said, I don't know. My granny just taught me that's the way that I should do it, right? I worked in my granny's store when I was a teenager, and she told me that's how you're supposed to answer the phone, so that's what I do. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what you do. But she didn't understand why. She'd just been told that's what you're supposed to do. So a lot of what we do is just, yes, you are doing the right thing. You just need to understand why so that you can be consistent with it. And because at the front desk, everyone bounces off each other, when you hear someone do something different, like ABC Dental, which is what a very common greeting for the dental phone is, you can stand strong on your own beliefs that, no, what I'm doing is right. I'm going to keep answering the phone that way, even if my colleagues are slipping. And then you can help your colleagues, of course, bring that back as well. So stuff that staff already know, they just don't understand why it's important. Or don't even realize that they're doing it. So that's one piece that I work with. And the other part that I teach, and this one's a little bit harder. It's a funny thing that it's harder, but being nice. And let me just explain a little bit about why. Being nice is one of the biggest pieces that we teach. In the medical field, whether it is dentistry or in the hospital or anything that's to do with medical, you see a lot of bad things every day. And with that, you get desensitized. It's like, okay, you might have a toothache, but buddy, that's nothing. I have seen so much worse. But to that person with the toothache, they're having the worst day of their lives, right? So what we see a lot of is, someone calling, they're in pain, they're trying to explain their pain, and the staff are going, okay, yep, do you have insurance? And they just completely forget that there's a human on the other end who's in pain, having the worst day of their lives, and all they want is someone to reach out and say, don't worry, I've got you, hold my hand, and I will lead you through this. I'll show you what to do and help you with that. So the second biggest piece, and obviously there's all the tips and tricks and sentences and say this instead of this, and psychology that gets involved when it comes to conversations. But a lot of it just comes down to You already know this. You got this. Just do it. You're doing well. And don't forget to be nice. Being nice has the highest booking correlation than any of the core quality steps that I could teach.
No, those are really great tips. Thank you for sharing that. From coaching different practices, are there any common opportunities you see that make a big difference for both patient experience and patient growth?
Absolutely. Putting patient experience, patient growth aside, because that is the result of these sort of things that I see across all practices. So we know we could teach the staff everything. We could teach them, this and that and all the tips and tricks and everything that could apply. But the difference between a practice that succeeds in their training and a practice that just continues at the grind, nothing's really working, is leadership, right? So having to improve without somebody saying, I believe in you, I trust in you, I want to give you the best I can so that you can develop professionally, is incredibly difficult. You're basically constantly up against a brick wall because they're not giving you the time or the space to learn what you need to learn. They're not giving you the feedback that you need to be able to say, am I doing the right thing? And quite often, and I it's really sad when I hear this, I hear staff completing the training at the front desk or even doing a private training with me at the front desk. And it's like, you cannot have a proper training when you are working at the same time. You don't work and do your university lecture at the same time, right? That just doesn't work. That is not a good learning environment. So the biggest thing I can say to dental staff out there is invest in the teaching of your staff, right? It is incredible. If your staff are better, you will be better. Your patient growth will be better. Their experience will be better if you allow your staff the space and the time to learn and grow. It is so easy to forget that your front desk staff are going to be the first impression a patient has with direct contact at your practice. And if they don't like what they see and your staff haven't been trained, then goodbye all that marketing money that you just spent, because that person's going to turn around, well, not literally, they're going to be on the phone call, right? They're going to hang up the phone and they're going to go and call your competitor down the street. So training your staff is incredibly important. Don't just sign them up for a course, expect them to do it on their own and hope they do better, right? Get involved in it as well. Once they've done the training, ask them questions. What did you learn? What are you going to change now that you've learned? Teach me something. The best way to learn is to teach. If your staff can teach you something that they've learned, that habit, that new skill is going to be deeply ingrained in their new, knowledge bank. I think that's, the common opportunities I see that people miss all the time is they try to cut corners, or I'm just going to train one staff member because they answer the phone most of the time, and that person's out there doing it alone with no support. I think that answers your question, Ashlyn. Tell me if it doesn't.
Yes. No, it does. No, and that makes sense. And I think you kind of touched it on for my next question as well. I was going to say, you talk about dentists and receptionists, training why it's so important. And listening today, we're going to have some dentists and obviously team members and receptionist team listening to this podcast today. Why is ongoing training so important? I know you just kind of touched on that, but when it comes to creating like a great patient journey, from that first phone call all the way to booking and arriving at the practice, what's so important about that patient journey?
So there's actually two different questions there, right? So I've already touched on the for dentists, why is it so important for the patient journey? You've got to train your teams. And the reason why we push this, there is no staff training out there for a dental receptionist, or if there is, it's quite rare, right? What usually happens in a dental practice is a new staff member comes on board, they walk in, their first day they say, there's your desk, there's your chair, there's your phone, good luck. And they're learning from what the rest of the staff are doing, and doing their best, the best that they can with the knowledge that they have. So in order to improve that patient journey, you're wanting to make sure that you are actually giving your staff what they need to be able to improve that patient journey, if that makes sense. So ongoing training, it's not just about do it once and you're done. You want to continue to learn and grow. with what we do at RevUp, so we didn't just listen to hundreds of thousands of calls and then go, this is what works, let's teach it now. We still listen to hundreds of thousands of calls. I think last month we listened to something like 22,000 calls last month alone. And we are still analyzing these calls, and we are still adjusting what works and what doesn't, because we now have AI, and that is different from when we started building these training programs. There are huge different, technological, developments that are happening on and on and on. So we're constantly needing to retrain, redesign, redevelop. One thing just on the whole things change that comes to my mind is when we first started building our analytics and stuff, we had this idea that if you put a patient on hold, they are probably not going to book with you. It made logical sense for us. We were saying, okay, like you call that the patient calls up and you say, please hold. And yeah, we have many, many calls where the patient will go, I've been on the phone for 2 minutes and they're still like, where are they? This is crazy. Or 10 minutes in some cases. Cassandra probably can attest to that better. She actually listened to these calls. But when we ran the data, we were blown away that we were wrong. So if you put a patient on hold, you actually have a higher correlation to book them. You have a higher chance to book them. The difference was when and how. And this is where training comes in. You can absolutely put a call on hold. It is okay to do that. But if you put your caller on hold, you answer the phone, and you go, ABC Dental, please hold. Yes, you're probably going to lose that patient. If during the call you say, I just need to check that, and suddenly there's silence and the patient's like, what do you mean check that? Like, where'd you go? Right? Yes, you're going to lose that patient. But if halfway through the call you say, I'm not actually sure, can I just put you on hold for a second? I'm going to go and talk to the dentist and see what I can do to get you your answer or your booking or whatever it is that you need. Almost every single time you will book that patient. So that's where this ongoing training is very important. Things change, and also you forget as well. So reminders and stuff is useful. So from a dentist perspective, that was a long-winded answer to say things change. Continue to change continue to train your staff, because it is important that they are continuously learning it. They don't just learn it. They're not one and done. That's not how training ever works. For the reception team, because you said dentist and receptionist, that's what kind of threw me, right? The incentives are different here, right? That is actually a tricky question, because why? Yeah, why do you care that a patient's journey is good or bad? It doesn't affect you. You don't own the practice. You don't get more money if you book more patients, right? Your job, if anything, just gets worse because you're getting busier and busier and busier. And I think this is something that dentists often forget, is that in order to book more patients, it's literally just making the dentist's life harder because they're booking more, right? Now, of course, there is it's your job, and don't you want to morally help these people, right? You want to be able to give them a good experience. It's the worst day of their lives. They're in pain, or nobody likes calling a dentist, right? So even if they're not in pain and it's not the worst day in their life, they still had to work up some courage to pick up that phone and call you. In this day and age, picking up the phone is a bit of a big deal. So helping people is definitely a reason why you want to be better at helping people. Also, patients who are treated better, who have a better conversation with you, are happier patients. And we all know that we want our patients to be happy, because dealing with an unhappy patient is always hard. So you guide these conversations, you learn these skills to say the right things at the right time, and you will have happier patients and happier conversations, which is always a nicer place to be. But the one thing that I hesitate to say, I think, in a way, is these skills are transferable. So like I said earlier, I don't have a background in dentistry. I didn't need a background in dentistry to be successful in dentistry, but the skills that I am learning working in dentistry are transferable. Make me a better leader, make me a better manager, make me a better parent. All of these things that I'm learning about communication and improving the other person's experience, I can use in my everyday life, and I can use that to push my career further than if I just sat back and didn't do any training, didn't do any development, just came in at 9 and left at 5, and that was my day.
That is very true. You can use those skills in your daily life as well. And I do like that you kind of did in a two-parter talking about dentists and receptionists. So thank you for covering that. My last question for you is, patient calls are often the first impression at a practice, right? So what skills do you think have the biggest impact when handling new patient calls or helping patients feel comfortable with like moving forward? What is your expertise on that?
So slight correction there. Okay. So patient calls are often the first impression of your practice. That's actually not true. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here, because in order for that patient to pick up the phone and call you, they have already gone through a whole lot of different stages of finding you, deciding whether to pick you, and all of that. So they have Googled you, they've Googled dentist near, well, they haven't Googled you, they've Googled dentist near me or some form of that. In order for you to show up on that Google search, you need to have strong SEO, you need to have good social proof that that's your Google reviews and your testimonials. They then need to go, okay, I'm going to click on that particular, top search. They're going to go to your website. If they go to your website and it looks like your nephew's brother did it, right? Nephew's brother, it's still your nephew. Anyway, whatever. If your nephew did it, they're going to go, what is this? I don't want to go to a dental practice that looks like a corner store convenience kind of website. You want to be going to someone that looks, high end, professional, answers your questions. So they have to go to your website and be impressed with what they see there as well. And that's all web development, all of that UX, UI, all of that stuff. There's a lot of science that goes into creating the perfect web page, or even just a professional one. Then they have to, if you're talking about a service that's like Invisalign, implants, something that requires a little bit more, they're going to be going and looking at those, video testimonials from other patients that if you don't have those, they're going to pick the practice that does, because listening to what other patients have gone through has a way bigger impact than a dentist who's, tooting his own trumpet. So, tooting his own horn. So your reception stuff, that phone call is not the first impression of your practice, but it is the first human impression of your practice. So they've seen all this wonderful stuff. They've gone, this is the practice I want to book. They ring up and you hear ABC Dental, do you have insurance? And it's sort of just like, whoa, that's not what I expected from this practice. And it gives them this kind of shock factor, which is often enough for them to say, oh, I don't know. And they hesitate. I don't really know if I want to book with this practice. Let me just check my schedule. I'll call you back. And they never call again, right? So with that phone call having the biggest impact of these new patients, your phone call has to reflect what your patients are really looking for. Now, what are patients really looking for when they call a dental practice? Do we honestly believe that somebody who knows they have something wrong with their teeth, that they're, root canal, all that sort of stuff, that they just want the cheapest, nastiest thing that they can possibly get? Absolutely not. People do not pick the cheapest option. They pick the best option for them. And in order for them to get the best option for them and think that the money they're paying matches the value that you're going to give, that phone call needs to represent that. And that's where it is incredibly important. Your staff need to know the right words to say, the right way to respond to your patients' inquiries, and understand that patients aren't just price shoppers. There really is no such thing in the dental profession. Someone who is looking for the cheapest thing, that's the person who's going to the dollar store. You don't go to the dollar store for dentistry, right? You go to somebody who you want to do a good job on your teeth, that's going to last long, that's going to give me the value for my money, and effectively I can trust, right? It's all about trust. And if your staff cannot convey that trust, then your patients are not going to want to either sign up with you in the first place or come back when they come in and they get just as bad an experience.
Thank you for also correcting me as well, because it is the first impression is actually your Google, right? Your Google page. That's where people find day and age right now. Back in the day, yeah, they did call around, but now people go on the internet, they go on their phone, they search dentist near me, and they see who comes up. So yes, the first impression digitally is, your presence on there. So what your website looks like, how many reviews you have, testimonials, videos, and then, like you said, the human interaction.
Remember when the yellow pages was like this thick, and now it's like this thick, right? And meanwhile, I think something like 60 or 70% of people will find you on Google, right? It's a huge, like even Bing and all those other search engines. No, Google is the one that people were using to find services. So that's why, Google reviews is incredibly important.
Well, thank you for touching on that, Beth. And thank you for your insight today. It's been great hearing about the work and training, the work that you've been doing with the training team at RevUp Dental, and especially the impact on how it's supporting, dental practices and improving their patient experience. So thank you so much. Next up is Cassandra, whose journey is anything but ordinary. So she spent over a decade in childcare and leadership, supporting families through some of their most emotional and vulnerable moments, before actually unexpectedly pivoting into the dental world with RevUp Dental. What started as a flexible work from home role quickly evolved into a standout career. She became one of the company's top call quality analysts, reviewing thousands of patient calls, shaping coaching strategies, and even stepping into live call handling herself. So today, she plays a key role in training dental teams and improving patient communication. Cassandra, that's a quick snapshot of your background, but is there anything else that you'd like to add before we dive in?
Yeah, it's a snapshot. It's like my last 15 years put into a paragraph. It's one of those things of Beth said it the best, that I almost felt like I didn't have kind of a leg up coming into RevUp Dental because I didn't have any dental experience. I had to unexpectedly pivot, and it was one of those, you see the job posting and you think, this is going to be interesting, and let's just see where it goes. And I feel that if 2021 me and 2026 me could sit in a room, she would not believe that this is where I am at right now and what I am doing. But it has turned into an amazing career for me. And honestly, I would not want to be anywhere else.
That's so great to hear. I know it's always unexpectedly, you're like, kind of like, oh, I didn't even think this would be where I'm going to be like in 10 years, right? Or in 6 years or 5 years. Especially with me, I didn't even think I'd be running podcasts, right now. So it's super exciting. Yes, definitely. So I have a couple questions for you. So when you are listening to calls on a regular basis, when you were a call quality analyst, what were some of the most common patterns or like challenges you noticed in how the front desk teams were handling patient inquiries?
So there's two things that stand out to me, and Beth actually touched on one already, and it's the overall lack of engagement, more specifically with those more seasoned receptionists, where there's a little bit of a pattern of they're almost doing their job because they have to, not because they want to. This is where we get into those emergencies where there is that lack of sympathy. So like Beth had touched on, it was, I'm in pain. I've been in severe pain for 24 hours. Sometimes they're even crying to you on the phone. And the first question is, well, do you have insurance? Or we can't see you today. I can give you an appointment 2 weeks from now. And there is that lack of empathy and sympathy that we're not providing to these patients. And we see that a lot more than we should, which is very unfortunate. And the second one would be the handling of, like Beth said, the cost question. So there's never really a true cost shopper. They're asking that question because they don't know what else to ask. And you'd be surprised how many receptionists will just respond with simply telling them the price, and then the call ends. It's a lost opportunity because there was no rapport established. There was no shift of power to bring it back to the receptionist to take control of the conversation. And there is something lacking then from the exchange that the patient is going to find from your competitor down the road, which is some simple discovery questions, a little bit of rapport, a laugh, a story. You're getting that relationship from somebody different. And again, it's one of those things of, I don't think receptionists even realize that they're doing it. You answer so many calls throughout the day that it's just another cost question. So I'm just going to give you the cost and I'm going to move on with the rest of my day. And you're not seeing it for what it is, which is an actual patient exchange and an opportunity to get a new patient.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I think our viewers can definitely agree or have that experience with your first part about empathy. You know, I've called multiple dental offices or even just someone in customer, service, and they've not been very helpful or they've been rude or, I'm in pain and I need to see someone. And they're just like, yeah, okay, well, we don't have anything today. And like, they just don't care, right, on the phone. So I definitely think that is a big part of it as well. And I have noticed, even myself working at RevUp, when I work with dental practices and, receptionists will be listening to some of the calls with the dentists and with the dentist, sorry. And we'll be listening to some of these calls with the dentist and we'll notice that they just give the price right off the bat and don't really explain anything further. It's kind of just like, oh, it's $150 for this. And then that's it. Doesn't give any explanation. So that makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. How do you stay objective when reviewing those calls every day or when you were a call analyst?
I will say honestly that sometimes it was hard, especially when I first started my QA journey, we were listening to a practice a month at a time. So every month we would get a new practice, and that was to kind of help us stay a little bit more objective, make it a little bit more fresh. And then we were making sure then that, the practice was getting the benefit of the doubt with different people listening to see if we were all seeing the same issues. And how we could kind of best support the practice. Towards the end of my time as a QA, we would go by quarter. So we would get the same practice for 3 months. And in those situations, you definitely had to dig a little bit deeper, give people a little bit more benefit of the doubt, I find, because you did find that patterns then would really stick. And then it would really be a test to, are you going to take my feedback and improve and work on it? And so, but I feel like it does help because I used that as a little bit of like a strength when I was writing my recommendations. Ashlyn, you can probably remember from a CSM standpoint, I wrote novels of notes for you. For you guys to give to the practices. So I feel that I kind of used that as like a strength then to say, I have all of these things that we can improve on. So I'm just going to write them all down and we'll see what sticks.
Yes. And for the viewers, a little background. Yes, I was a customer success manager before. So I used to work with dentists and help them with their practices, their marketing, and support them that way. So I definitely worked very closely with Cassandra when it came to training, as well as Beth, because I would have to see how their practice was performing and then share it with the dentist, right? So it was a great, I forgot what I was supposed to say there. What I was going to ask you, Cassandra, when you were talking about reviewing calls every day and staying objective, it's really interesting that you did it for 3 months straight with one practice. You probably saw patterns, right? You probably saw what was happening, and it was probably easier to find patterns in 3 months than just doing 1 month, right? Because if you just were like reviewing a bunch of practices for just 1 month, you probably maybe saw a little bit of patterns, but it's interesting doing it for 3 months. And I wonder what it would look like at 6 months as well.
Yeah, so it definitely was interesting going through and doing the 3 months at a time. It was one of those, you did see a lot of patterns, and I kind of felt like at times you were kind of reiterating the same notes over and over and over again, but then it did really help you to pinpoint as to exactly what these receptionists need help with, and you could better suggest training because of that. With the doing it for 1 month, it was great because it gave you a fresh perspective every month. But it was also, you didn't know, were they just having a bad month? You kind of had to look back then through other notes to see if there were patterns emerging. Were you being a little bit too harsh on this one person? Or did it kind of fit the pattern that, the QAs had been seeing for months up until I got to the practice, right? So
I just wanted to jump in there because I was like, oh yes, like, wow, that is so important. Because it reminds me of the situation where I was quite harsh to a receptionist, right? So I did her assessment. I was in the training space by this stage. I was not listening like Cassandra was doing. I was sort of out of it. She did her training and didn't test well, right? So I kind of went, oh, like this person, they don't know what they're doing. Like this is really bad. And I kind of was not very nice in my feedback. And then when she got the feedback, she was quite upset. So I went back and read, the novels that Cassandra would leave and realized that this person just didn't test well. That was the only issue. She actually was amazing on the phone. And I think that's where it's important for monitoring. Right. So you could take a snapshot. You could listen to a single phone call and go, that's how this person behaved. That is not how that person behaves all the time. Right. It's the duration. It's the over a long period of time where you can start seeing they do this. So it might be they have a fantastic call. Right. That there is absolutely, 30% of all calls book. Right. Does that mean that 30% of the time the receptionist is miraculously doing something better? And 70% of the time they're not. No, like generally it's the patterns that we're seeing. Sometimes you have a good call, sometimes you have a bad call. And if you can be aware of that over a longer period of time, you can have more good calls than bad, right? And that's why with RevUp's monitoring is so important, because we don't just look at a single day. And most coaching programs do. Right? Most coaching programs will come in, they'll observe for a week or two period of observation, and then with what they've observed, they're going to teach you how to do different things, right? With RevUp, we listen to the calls and analyze them for about 3 to 6 months. After 3 months, we kind of say, okay, I've seen enough, I can see a pattern here. At the 6-month mark, we can actually say, this is how these habits, these patterns are affecting your long-term productivity. And so, that was something that when I started the training program with Nick, the CEO of RevUp, was like, what can we do differently that every other training program, because there are training programs out there, right? There's a lot of training programs and many of them are very, very good. We used to refer stuff. Ashlyn, you probably used to refer practices to other training programs out there, and they are good. But because they don't have this ongoing monitoring, you don't get that sort of long-term insights that you could otherwise have that RevUp provides, right? It's why that it is so powerful to be able to say this is not just a day in the life. This is 6 months worth. We can see the patterns, we can see the habits. I'm so sorry for jumping in on there, Cassandra. I was just like, yes, girl, this is exactly why it's so important.
And that's very true, Beth. It's when I first worked at RevUp, we used to refer to other training programs. And when we did, you're correct. They didn't monitor over a long period of time. It was like maybe that day they did it or a week, and they weren't in depth as well. A lot of the dentists will come back to me and say, this course was just kind of like a mini course. Like it was like 20 minutes. I feel like it was a waste of time. Like I need something that's like more detailed. And I also need other resources. I need scripts. I need guides. Do YouTube videos. And these are all of the things that RevUp is providing now to our clients, which is amazing. So thank you, Beth, for stepping in there. Cassandra, my next question I wanted to ask you is, being part of the training team, how has the call analyst experience influenced the way you help develop training materials and resources for dental offices?
At RevUp, we focus on data. So I have that data. Cassandra, in a single year, analyzes, listens to reviews, analyzes, provides notes on more than 20,000 calls in a single year. To put that into perspective, your average receptionist is going to answer 200 in a year. So that's a huge difference, right?
That is a lot of calls, Cassandra.
Yes. Yeah. So to say that I have experience, I think would be a little bit of an understatement if I am going to sit here and toot my own horn. But I do feel that does give me an insight that not everyone else has, right? So I have 3 years of analyzing calls. I think at one point I had listened to pretty much all of the clients that RevUp has, right? So I know these receptionists and these team members on a deeper level because I have spent 3 years listening to all of their calls. So I know where they struggle. I know the areas that they need improvement. And because of that, I can tailor my answers, my feedback, the guides that we're starting to create, the courses that we're coming out with. We can tailor all of those to how they would best benefit the receptionists, dental teams, instead of just creating generic guides that nobody really wants to read, that are just going to sit on the back burner and no one cares about. We can really tailor it to what is going to interest them and what they can look at and say, oh, that's me. You can help me with this, right? So, yeah.
Yes, that's great. And what separates high performing teams from struggling teams, being a call analyst and kind of, noticing all this, and especially all the calls that you've listened to as well?
You can see the high performing teams. They are definitely more cohesive and they're more consistent as a team. I have listened to practices where they have the same greeting. You can say that they have the same kind of tone as to how they're handling calls. And you can tell that as a team, they're really working together to make sure that they're giving the best possible patient experience. They're applying the training when it's been a couple months and they're applying the training perfectly. But most importantly, they care about their patients. We're not seeing those lack of empathy, the lack of sympathy. We're seeing the cohesiveness and the consistency and just the genuine care for their job and their patients. And I feel like that's kind of what creates the difference between those high performing teams and the struggling teams, because you can see the teams where it's almost every team member for themselves. You've got one person who's doing a really nice warm welcome. You've got one person who's not. Like Beth had said, she did the coaching and she was like, well, why do you answer the phone like that? And she was like, well, that's how my granny taught me. And that's how you kind of get the different people in those struggling practices who are not working well as a team, because they're all just kind of doing different things.
And kind of my last final question for you, which you kind of stated a little bit previously, but what surprised you the most when reviewing those calls? Like, what was your biggest surprise that always came up, viewing all of those calls, reviewing them all?
Well, we've definitely touched on it a lot. And I think that I keep coming back to it because it is one of the biggest pieces that I feel really shocked me when I started working, was the absolute lack of empathy that we were getting with certain practices and certain receptionists. And I could not understand how you could become so robotic over time. And so kind of like desensitized to, like, these are human beings. Like, I understand that you listen to, a lot of calls throughout the day, and to you, they might just be another patient, but there is someone on the other end of that call who is really in pain and really struggling. And I think that was one of the things that kind of shocked me the most. I did not know how interesting the dental world would be, if we're being completely honest. Some of the calls that I have heard, I was like absolutely shocked. I was like, this is very interesting.
And it's crazy that people are so desensitized to it. Like, I remember listening to a call with a dentist, and this woman I had to share it with the dentist first of all, because I couldn't believe the receptionist was like this to this woman, especially a mother. And, both of you are mothers, so you will relate to this. But this woman was calling the practice and kind of crying on the phone. You can hear her kind of whimpering. She sounds really in distress. Her 4-year-old child fell and chipped its tooth and broke his tooth off. I'm sure there was bruising, fell in the playground, was so upset. She didn't know what to do. She didn't have a dentist. She just moved to this town and she's calling around, and she finally calls this practice, which was one of our clients. And this was a newer receptionist, so didn't have much training, but she answered the phone and she just didn't care. Like, she didn't seem like she wanted to help this mom out or felt bad for her. She was just like, yeah, we have no appointments available today. And this woman's like, okay, I'm so I need to find someone. Do you know anyone that could recommend someone, or another dental practice that I can go to? Like, my kid is literally crying and their mouth is bleeding. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. You'll have to call around. And it was just the most shocking and upsetting call to hear.
You just triggered both Cassandra and I. We both have 4-year-old children, right? So both of us are going, oh gosh, this is my baby. And yeah, the absolute panic that fills a parent when they just do not know what to do, right? You're supposed to be the one with all the answers, the one that is chill in an emergency and can kiss that booba better and everything's fine, right? But when you don't know what to do, and then you try to reach out to the people who are supposed to help, and they're saying, I don't know what to do either. You're on your own, lady. It's just, yeah, it's horrifying. And well, I can feel the emotions of this mother. You triggered us both. Wow.
Yeah, it's very heartbreaking. And, she didn't know who to call, and they could have just recommended someone else. Or maybe she could have, I'm sure you will have better ideas for the situation. But my thinking was just put her on hold, check with the dentist, or even recommend another dental office in the area for her, because she was so heartbroken and such panic about this situation. I could not imagine how she was feeling. So
that just triggered me. What could you do? What could you do in this situation where you don't have any availability? You've got someone crying. You don't know, right? The receptionist doesn't know. They don't have a 4-year-old child to smash them out. They're not going, oh my gosh, honey, if this was me, I would also be terrified. So I heard this thing. It was absolutely amazing. Apologize less, help more. Now, what does that mean? Instead of saying, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 it's kind of like saying, yes, the train is cancelled. Come with me. Right? So, yes, your son is in a bad position. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what I'm going to do to help you. We don't have any availability today. I can put you on a wait list, but that's probably not going to help you. So let's you and I see if we can find who you can contact. There is nothing wrong with a receptionist at one practice saying, let me help you find somewhere else you can go. Because what that person's going to remember is that practice helped. In a crisis, that practice helped. And even if they end up going to a different practice, they might not have a good experience at the other practice, right? Or it might just be going to an emergency hospital somewhere, which is probably what we should have really recommended in this case. Hospitals do deal with emergency cases, right? They would then come back to that practice because that was the practice that helped them. So apologize less, help more. And I thought, that is exactly what we miss so often. I'm sorry, we don't have any availability versus, yes, we don't have any availability, but let me see what I can do. Big difference.
Sounds way
Sorry
better.
to jump in on that. That was a beautiful example.
No.
You got some emotions going there, Ashlyn.
I'm glad. No, and it's not like it's not an uncommon situation. I feel like this happens often. People have dental emergencies and the receptionist doesn't provide enough empathy for them, or, doesn't direct them in the right direction because, like you said before, Beth, they're calling because they want you to help them. They don't know who else to call, right? You're supposed to direct them in the best direction possible. But thank you for sharing that. And I think that's a great point. And Cassandra, it was great hearing all of the work that you've done with the training team, and especially, in the past being a call analyst. So thank you so much for answering my questions today, as well as, explaining, the impact it has on supporting dental practices and improving patient experience. So thank you so much. So on to our next, we're going to talk about and actually listen to some calls. We're going to analyze them together, which will be very exciting. So the first call we're going to look at that I want to play for both of you, Beth and Cassandra, is a call that really shocked me. Even though I just told you that story, which was shocking, this is going to be a call that we're going to listen to together that I had found. And I found it really shocking, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. So just for our viewers' information, we do edit this for confidentiality, so not to worry about that. We're going to have a listen to the first call.
How can I help you?
Yeah, can I make an appointment, please?
Sure. Have you been here before?
Yeah.
Okay, what is your phone number, please, ma'am? Yes? Let me check that out. Oh, what is your child's name? You haven't been here in over 5 years. Have you been anywhere else since then?
The whole time, no goes nowhere. After
your kids hasn't been here in 5, 6 years, some of them, and you haven't been anywhere else since then?
Because yes. I go to the dentist, I bring my dentist.
So why do you want to come here for then?
Oh, the whole time I'm not coming. After 3 years, after I go my dentist. Now
okay, so you should go back to your dentist. Go back, take the kids back to your dentist. You haven't been here in 5 years, more than 5 years. So 2018, 5.5 years. So you can go back to your dentist, Mama.
You cannot make it?
No, the doctor's going to say no because you haven't been here in a long time.
Oh,
So
it's
she's
okay.
going to
Thank you.
yeah. So she's going to set to go back to your dentist, okay?
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So I
That
can
one
see
gave you a
both.
bit of a switcheroo, didn't it there? You sort of start off going, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. You know, intro
Yeah.
aside, asking questions, things are going well, speaking clearly and slowly for the caller who obviously has a, you know, English as a second language situation going on. But woo, then it turns.
Yeah, what was
almost
your
like
immediate reaction? I could see your faces too as the call was happening.
I went and I got my notes. I started writing some notes, thinking like, this is good. Okay, we're listening to a good call here. Let's observe what she's doing well. So we'll start on the things that she did well. Yeah, asking questions, engaged the caller, responded to the initial inquiry with questions, which is actually quite rare. Like most of the calls, Cassandra, obviously you're the one with the expert here, but most of the calls that we listen to tend to just be a yes or no situation. What's your schedule is the most common question. But she's actually asking questions, which is good. You want to be asking questions to get to know what's going on.
Cassandra, you listened to 20,000 calls, or how many calls do you listen to? What was your perspective about this one?
I feel like Beth is playing a little bit more of the devil's advocate than I think I was in this situation. We definitely could pinpoint a few things that she did well. Yes, the first half of the call, you're kind of sitting there being like, okay, this isn't too bad. You've got a nice welcome. She's got a nice tone, you know, making her feel a little bit welcomed into the practice. But then it switches on a dime. And I think the line that shocked me the most was, go back to your dentist. And it's like, but yeah, why? Like, it shouldn't matter if they've been here. It shouldn't matter how long it's been. She's still calling. She still wants an appointment for an obvious reason. And your thing is just to shoo her away.
I think it's shocking, right? Because you're not actually just declining to help. You're literally saying, go away. Don't come here. If I book you, my dentist will say no because you haven't been here in 5 years. Now, I don't know about you guys, but growing up, now I'm from New Zealand, right? It was very normal to go years without going to the dentist. If you don't have insurance, you don't have something that's sort of like regularly going to cover it, it is very normal to not go to the dentist for a couple of years. So for me, it's like, okay, 5 is a long time, but also you could have gone away. You could have come. Like, it's really, I'm struggling here to understand why you would actively decline a patient, and especially a patient who's trying to book in for their kids. And I think that's why this cannot be a normal case, Cassandra. Like, surely you don't hear many calls that are like this.
It's few and far between, especially when it does come to children. I feel like there is more of a little bit of empathy that comes with dealing with children than with adults.
So it's extra shocking to hear someone basically flat out say no. And then like kind of interject these sort of endearing terms. You have to go somewhere else, mama. It's like, what? You nice or not? I don't understand what's going on here.
Well, and I find it funny that she reverted to the dentist to say the dentist wouldn't see you. But what dentist is going to turn away a patient, a child, right? So where did that come from?
Yeah, and that reminds me of we hear from dentists. So when I work with the practice owners, the dentists, they go, that would never be my staff, right? My staff would never say that. My staff would never do that. And then you play them the recordings, and there is just like shock. I cannot believe this is my staff, that this is what my staff say. In fact, this reminds me completely outside of the dental world at one of my big corporate jobs when I used to work in the corporate world. I would frequently hear, when I would put forward an idea of like, hey, can we try this thing? I would hear all the time, the CEO won't let that happen. The CEO wouldn't like that. The CEO wouldn't want that, right? I actually am a type of person who will talk to the CEO. So, you know, whatever, I see them in the elevator, I'm going to strike up a conversation with them. And I did. Frequently, we would it sounds really weird, but we would meet in the basement, but that's just because we both left at the same time of the day. So often we would bump into each other on our way in and out. And I would say, hey, I had this idea. I'm just wondering, everyone's saying you wouldn't like this, but what do you think? And she was like, absolutely, that's an amazing idea. Like, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. And meanwhile, everyone else is saying, oh, no. Like, the dentist wouldn't like that, right? The practice owner wouldn't want us to say that. Actually, just the other day, I had some staff tell me my practice owner, the dentist, will not let us give prices over the phone, right? And so I talked to the dentist and I said, just wondering what your reasoning is behind not allowing your staff to give prices over the phone. And the dentist turns around and says, well, no, they can give prices over the phone. Like, that's fine. I just want to make sure they're giving the right prices, And it's like, okay, so it's not about yes or no, it's about doing it right. And we hear this all the time, like, oh, my boss would never allow this, my boss wouldn't want this, but meanwhile the boss is going, what are you talking about? Of course I would. Yes, I want these patients to come in my door. Yes, I absolutely would take this child, even though they have been 5 years. Why would we not? That doesn't make any sense. And yet the staff members here are going, oh, no. I heard once that they were annoyed that it was 5 years before the patient came back, and these are annoying cases. Therefore, in my mind, I've sort of got this vision of what my owner wants. And that probably comes back, Cassandra, to what you were saying about teams being cohesive versus people working independently, where you actually talk together and identify what you do and do not accept. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. Cassandra, over to you.
No, I think you pretty much covered it. And then, yes, it does go back to the teams of you can kind of see where the breakdown happens. And it would be interesting to see if a different receptionist at that practice would say the same thing, or if she would have given the patient a different experience, right? So that does pose the question.
This was definitely a tough call because I
still think this must be an extreme case. Like, sure,
yes.
I'm struggling. It's been a long time since I listened to calls, and I'm like, no way. Let's listen to something more realistic.
Yes, we can listen to another call here for you. One sec.
Cassandra's just got an I'm not shocked face on. She's like, nah, this is something I hear all the time.
Yeah. We have 10 minutes left. Did you want to do an emergency or a good call or another shock call?
Let's just do it. We'll just do it and see what happens.
How may I help you?
And I was wondering if this practice was accepting any new patients at this time.
Yes.
The current plan I have is from what's their Advantage Plus PPO. Do you guys accept that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any dates on the calendar that I could possibly look at?
Well, what do you need to come in for, a cleaning?
Yeah, it would be just start off as a cleaning because I'm about
a problem?
It would just be general cleaning to start. I'm about like maybe 1 to 2 years out from seeing a dentist, so I want to get that taken care of, see if there's anything that needs to get addressed.
Okay. All right, let me see.
I think we've probably heard enough there. The first like 60 seconds is where all the magic happens, right?
All the good stuff.
Cassandra, do you want to start this one off?
Yeah. Not to jump in with like a dental pun or anything, but listening to her talk is quite literally like pulling teeth.
That was what I was thinking. I was like, oh.
Like, you need to give this man a little bit more than just a one-word answer. And the pauses.
Long pauses and then just, yes, we do. And no information given.
No, like, yeah, you can really tell that this was the last thing that she wanted to do today. She had absolutely no interest in helping this man, no interest in booking the appointment. And I think that's the hardest part, is that he's really nice. He's excited. Let's book this new, dental visit and let's build this relationship. And she is just so flat and so uninterested and unenthusiastic that it almost hurts to listen to it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like what I was saying before, where your staff, the phone call, like what you were asking, Ashton, what's the biggest impact on that phone call, right? When someone calls your practice, it doesn't match everything else they've seen. They've got the great reviews, they've got the great website, they've got everything else, and then they get this, do you accept patients? Yes. And something that dental staff forget is patients don't call a practice every day. You answer the phone every day, but they don't call the practice every day. They don't know what to say, right? So they're asking pretty standard questions. Do you take new patients? I think that's probably 30% of all the calls that come in is some sort of do you take new patients question.
And you could hear him struggling asking because he was like, I don't even know what to. You could hear it in his voice. He's like, do you have anything available? Like, he doesn't know what to say because she's not giving any information. So that's a really good point.
We actually have a term for this, don't we, Cassandra? What's that term that we use? We call it letting the patient lead the call, right? You're relying on the patient to do all the heavy lifting of this conversation. And how does this end up 70% of the time? The patient says, okay, cool, thanks, bye. Right? Especially if it's a cost question. And this is where the term price shopper comes up. Because, they're just a price shopper. It's like, no, you literally didn't give them any reason to book with you. You just answered their questions with one-word answers. So here's the fun part. How could she have done that differently? Can we play it again, but this time instead of her response, let's us respond. Let's say how we would do it.
How may I help you?
And I was wondering if this practice was accepting any new patients at this time.
There. All right. So really, really common question. Do you take new patients? Of course, we prepared a statement. Yes, we take new patients. Are you looking for a general checkup and cleaning, or is there something specific you need us to take a look at? Straight away, I have answered his question and I'm guiding him the way I need to go. I want to know, are you an emergency patient or are you just a general new patient, checkup new patient, right? Now, that's one way we could do it. What's another way we could do it, Cassandra?
You could welcome them to the practice.
Yeah, so that would sound something along the lines of, yes, absolutely, we take new patients. Welcome to ABC Dental. What's your name? That'll be another beautiful way to do it. And that's going less around I like my one because I can guide them straight where I want them to go, but this is going down the emotional line. Get to know them better, right? Learn their name, create that sort of connection. I remember once I had a patient say, hi, my name is, I don't know what the name was, Laura. Let's just say Laura. The receptionist name was Laura as well. And she said, good morning, welcome to ABC Dental. My name is Laura. How can I help you? And the patient said, oh, hi, my name is Laura too. And the receptionist said,
Awkward silence.
Oh dear, Laura, come on.
I feel bad for Laura.
I don't think her name is Laura, but yeah, like you said it. So picking up on that relationship building opportunity is another great way, especially with new patients. What is a new patient looking for? They don't want to find a new practice every year. They want to find somebody who they can sign up to for a long period of time. So they want that relationship. So you got two ways we could have done that differently. Yes, we're taking new patients. Are you looking for a general checkup and cleaning? Or is there something specific you need us to take a look at? That would be going down the what kind of appointment are we? She even asked it, I think later, we'll get into that. What kind of appointment are you booking? Or the, yes, we're taking new patients. Welcome to ABC Dental. What is your name? We're going down the human element, right? That's good. I like that. What's next? What does he say to her? Yes.
Yes.
The current plan I have is from it's their Advantage Plus PPO. Do you guys accept that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So insurance question, right? Big thing. I think we're probably talking more like 50% of all calls have some sort of, do you take my insurance question? Which is great because it means a lot of people have insurance. So again, Cassandra, do you want to go first on this one?
Well, that's the thing. So the reason that he asked about the insurance was because she hadn't guided him to ask anything else. So you can hear the pause. You can hear the, well, he's thinking of that second question because he was expecting her to take charge of the situation and guide him through the rest of the call. So of course he's going to move right into insurance. If she had guided the call and asked, do you need a new patient appointment? Or do you have an emergency of sorts? Then we would have guided the conversation into a completely different direction. So he's only asking that because he had nothing else to ask.
That is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Because it's the same with cost, right? Cost or insurance. And they're basically the same question, right? Do you take my insurance? what is the cost of something? Same question. And what you're saying there is if we had answered differently to that initial inquiry, do you accept new patients? That question wouldn't even come up, right? How much does it cost wouldn't have even come up. And I think it comes down to it doesn't matter, right? If you can do a really, really good job at convincing this person that your practice is great and matches everything they've seen online, then the cost doesn't matter as much because they see you as offering the value that they want. Oh, that was a beautiful insight there, Cassandra.
And I was actually just going to ask you both that and just say, hey, doesn't that happen as well where people will just go right into the cost because they don't know what to ask next?
Yes, they don't know what to say. And I've done webinars, I've done courses on this. The reason why people ask about cost is because they don't know what else to say. They don't call a dental practice every day. They literally are just asking the only thing that they know about dentistry, which is it's going to cost me something.
And just to pause you on that note, Beth, we also at RevUp Dental do have these resources on our website. So you can check out our website at www.revupdental.com. And if you select our resource section, you'll be able to see our guides and scripts and also YouTube videos as well. We also do webinars as well. So you can check out our webinars on YouTube as well as our website.
I think we'll do some plugins throughout. That's absolutely true. These courses are great. They'll teach you exactly what to say. So Cassandra's saying you don't even need to prepare for the answer on this one because if you had what we call shifting the power, right? If you had shifted the power, if you had responded to their initial inquiry with a bit of thought and a little bit of preparation, because you know a lot of people are going to ask this question, you won't even need to worry about the next question that's going to come down the line, which is how much does it cost / do you take my insurance? But it will still come up from time to time, especially if you're one of our listeners who's in the US, right? Where insurance, like in Canada, insurance, every insurance is accepted because insurance and dental practices don't have that, same relationship that it happens in the States where, yes, your practice does have to have a relationship with the insurance provider. So do you take my insurance? Yes, we do accept insurance. Do you understand how it works? Do you want to know how it works here at this practice? Right? Would you like me to explain how it works here at this practice? So going down the line of understanding that very few people understand their insurance, right? I personally didn't know anything about my insurance when I first got it. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know how it worked. It was just like, I have this thing and now I have to figure it out for myself. Meanwhile, this dental receptionist, this staff member who works in this every single day, knows how it works, knows about it, but yet doesn't explain any of this to the patient who doesn't know what to do, right? So if we can go down that line, yes, we take insurance. Would you like me to explain how it works? Yes, we take insurance. Do you understand how it works? Yes, we take insurance. Would you like me to explain how we would help you here at our practice, right? That kind of line of question. That is if you do accept the insurance. But what if you don't, right? How does that work? Now, I'm going to kind of put Canada aside. The only thing when it comes to Canada is do you do direct billing or not? Now, remember Canadians, just because you don't take direct billing doesn't mean that patient can't use it. In fact, I personally preferred the practices that didn't do direct billing because I put it on my credit card, got my points, and then the money was reimbursed anyway, right? And it's super quick. So sometimes that non-direct billing is actually an advantage because I can deal with all the stuff with the practice at the practice, and then I can deal with my insurance company on the side. And I trust my insurance company. It was Manulife or Sun Life or one of the big ones that they don't care as long as you just report it properly, right? Canada aside, US, you're not a network with the insurance provider. That doesn't mean you cannot work with them. That means you're not a network with their insurance provider. Obviously, if the person's within a PPO, preferred provider, something or other, I can't remember what O stands for. If they're at a PPO, you can work with them, right? At a different level. So that's where that question, do you want me to explain how it works, is so useful, is so valuable. I'm sorry, we're not in network with that provider, but we might still be able to work with you. Explain your situation, tell me what you're dealing with, and I can tell you how we can work with you. Right? Think back to that mother situation where she had the, tooth chipped, right? Let's say the kid's hurt their tooth, for a start, she doesn't care how much it costs. Her kid is hurting. She's going to pay whatever it takes to get this fixed. If you're the practice that's helping, she will pay. Simple as that. Secondly, my insurance isn't with you guys. You're not in network with Delta or whatever it is, right? We can still absolutely take you. Would you like me to explain how it would work? Are you with a PPO provider? Well, with PPO providers, this is usually how it works. We still take you. We still work with you. Your PPO probably covers around 60%. Don't quote me on this. This is between you and an insurance provider. But based on my experience, people who are under PPOs generally get 60% covered. So you can go down that line of, you don't have to say this is what will happen. You can say, in my experience, this is what we observe. This is what can happen. This is where it comes, it's important to practice what you say, right? If you're worried about giving someone a false idea or false impression, then practice and make sure you avoid saying, this is what it's going to cost you. And instead you say, based on my experience, it will probably cost you something around range, right? High and low. You're not giving your patients any false knowledge there, false information there. So yeah, I like that. First, you don't need the question in the beginning because you've responded very, very well. And then if it does come up, this is how you would respond. Sure, yes or no, we don't or do take your insurance. Would you like me to explain how it works? Would you like me to explain how we can help you? Right.
So we just talked about 2 shock calls, and Beth and Cassandra did provide us some great insight on what direction those receptionists should have done, or what improvements they should have made as well. The next call I'm going to share is actually an exceptionally great call or a good call that I thought the receptionist did a really great job with this patient. So I wanted to get both of your opinions. So let's play this call for you.
Good afternoon. How can I help?
Hi. I was looking online for dentists that specialize with like gums and like gum recession problems.
Yes.
Would that be would you guys be able to help with that?
Yes, that would be us. Whom am I speaking with today?
My name's.
Can I ask you just a couple of questions?
Yep.
Were you diagnosed with some sort of gum recession issues, or is this something that you've noticed yourself?
Just going to pause it there and see your thoughts about it so far.
Round of applause. That was beautiful. That was absolutely lovely. She gave a beautiful introduction. And I think this is something that is really important for every single phone call. You have 7 seconds to make an initial impression with a person. So within 7 seconds, this person has decided whether or not they like you. Now, with most dental phone calls, most welcomes, most introductions, you get something along the lines of ABC Dental, how can I help you? Or ABC Dental, can I help you? Is another one. It's a habit. It's quick. It's fast. We sort of think, I got to be quick. I got to answer the phone quickly. I got to do everything quick. But just taking those full 7 seconds to greet, good morning, good afternoon, introduce the practice. This is ABC Dental. Introduce yourself. My name is Beth. And then start the conversation. How can I help you today? Which is going to hand the baton neatly back to the caller, who will then explain why they called. The first 7 seconds is going to make all the difference. So she did that in this particular call. That was beautifully done. And then what does the caller say? Something about, do you do something about gum recession, right?
Yes, he's asking about gum.
Would that be would you guys be able to help with that?
Yes, that would be us. Whom am I speaking with today?
My name's.
Can I ask you just a couple of questions?
Sorry, we don't need to hear the questions. She's done the first part of the call. She's just nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, it took 35 seconds for her to do a full warm welcome, shift the power, ask discovery questions, establish rapport by using his name, a nice, beautiful tone. It's like silk listening to her talk. I absolutely love it. And 30 seconds. So it doesn't take long and much time to do all the steps and to have a really good call. Most people think that you have to stay on the phone for 6 minutes to be able to hit all of the steps that you need to hit to have a successful call, when she went through and had 4 out of the 5 that we teach in the foundations course in the first 30 seconds.
Only because she didn't have time to what we call promote the practice, which she's doing anyway, simply demonstrating that this patient is talking to a professional who's prepared and ready to answer the questions you have, but also ask questions so that the patient doesn't have to do any thinking. I'll ask the questions. You don't have to think like this. In the gum recession, not as common, right? This doesn't come up all the time. This is a very specific inquiry, but she's ready with her prepared response. And this is where we sort of say the shift of power statements. You don't have to be ready to answer every single inquiry. Usually, if you're prepared a few statements, it'll work with 90% of the different types of calls you're going to get. So you just need to prepare 2 or 3 sentences and be ready to use them depending on the scenario that the patient's asking about, right? We call that shifting the power. And how did she do that? She said, yes, we do. What did she say? You called the right practice, or this is the right practice. What's your name? Right? Is that what she did? Yeah. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So like we said earlier, when we were reviewing another call, we said you have 2 options, right? You can say, yes, we do. Would you like me to explain how it works? Or you can go down the personal line where you say, let me learn your name, and then I'll use that name throughout the conversation so that we can build a relationship together. So that was beautifully done. And then she did it again, didn't she, Cassandra? She said, and this is where we say you don't have to just do it once. Like she's pulling that conversation back again and again under her control. Don't you tell me what to say. I will tell you what to say. Can I ask you some questions so I can get an idea of your situation? Oh, absolutely lovely. All the patient has to say is, yeah, sure, which is exactly what he did. And then she starts asking questions, right? She gets an idea of what's going on, what's the situation. And all she'd have to do is ask like 2 or 3 questions. And this patient, within, like Cassandra said, it doesn't have to take long. 30 seconds is going, this is the practice that's going to help me. Price doesn't matter.
And I just found it flowed so nicely where the other ones were, we were kind of like cringing at it. It was like pulling teeth, where this one, it just flowed very nicely. It was a great conversation. She made me feel so welcomed. So definitely it was a great call to listen to.
I think that's a great call to wrap up today's episode with. Yeah.
Yes, we'll definitely wrap up. Yes, on a good note, we'll wrap that up. I just want to say before I let you both go, I know you have to leave. As we wrap up today's episode, I just want to say, a big thank you to Beth and Cassandra for sharing their experiences and insights and perspective with us today. For everyone that was listening today, I know they'll appreciate it. You provided such great feedback, and the conversations that we had, I think, really reinforced how much the front desk shapes the patient journey, right? Especially for those who are the very first phone calls, or those the moments that set the tone for everything that follows, right? So whether it's through training or coaching or simply becoming more aware of how we communicate, even small changes can have a big impact in the patient experience and patient growth. So on that note, I'll let you both go, but I want to say thank you, and hopefully we'll have you back on the podcast soon.
Yeah, this is really good. I'm looking forward to diagnosing like a full call where we can really get into the nuances of like, how do you promote the practice? How do you handle an implants or something call where we're talking about like high ticket cases here. I'm looking forward to that. So that'll be good. And it was lovely working with you as well, Cassandra. It's always lovely working with you. I feel like we're very in sync with like what we hear.
Perfect. So as we end today's episode, for the dentists, receptionists, or even team members that were tuning in today, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. We hope you had some practical information given to you. We provided hopefully enough information. We have resources on our website that we can also share with you, and you can start using right away. So next week's episode, we are actually going to dive into a more high ticket case, like an implants call. And we're going to dissect that with Beth and Cassandra, who are coming back next week. So thank you very much for today's episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashlyn. Bye, Cassandra.
Have a good day. Bye. Great job.